Now that we've got the wedge fit, we can get started on the notch for the clamping pin. The front edge of the head is the reference face for the layout on the notch for the clamping pin. So the first thing we have to do is cut that off and get it trued up. You can do that at the bandsaw, you can do it at a chop saw. I'm going to go ahead and just use my big tenon saw here. So rather than just cutting straight down and meeting in the middle, I'm going to saw a curve here, and then I'm going to slowly drop the heel of the saw till it's about a 45-degree angle. Then I'm going to turn the part over and do the same thing on the other end, and then get a bench hook out and set the saw down on the top of the part and saw straight down through this way. You'll see how that works. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to make sure that I get as accurate a cut as I can. And by establishing a kerf on each end and then a partial kerf on the top, I can set myself up to have a really good straight cut. Okay, now it's time to flip it. I can plane off this edge until I start cutting right here. There's a bit of a low spot. And now the plane is starting to cut all the way to the edge. So I need to come back and put a little bit of chamfer here to protect that edge from blowing out. That's not going to affect our layout any. And I always end up chamfering all the edges anyways when I'm done to protect them anyways. Okay, so we're coplanar. Now I need to check for square. Okay, so we're out of square. We're pretty high on this side. And just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to take a series of passes. I take a little bit of material, about this much here. Then I take about twice as much. Then a little bit more. Then a little bit more. And what that does is it takes more material off of this end than it does off of that end. And that allows me to change the angle in a controlled amount. And that just cleans everything up at the end there. Okay, that'll do it. So that's our leading edge. So we've got the head clamped in the vise here. This is the top of the head, and this is the edge that faces the user when you're using it. And we're going to go ahead and lay out the notch for the pin keepers as well as the notch for the pin itself. So the first measurement we have is 15/16 down from this top edge to what I guess would be the ceiling of the notch for the pin. And I'm just going to put a mark with my knife here so I can come back with a gauge and do the entire job. Then we need to come in 2 inches from this edge, and that is for the pin keepers. And this is why we had to cut that front edge to shape, because it all references off of that angle. Now we know that this is 15 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and get my bevel, which is set at that angle, and use a knife to mark that. Now we need to start from this edge and come over 3/16 of an inch towards the leading edge here. And we come up at a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to flip this square so that I can have the bevel of the knife in the waist. Now all we need to do is set our marking gauge. I'm going to come off the bottom with this gauge because I want the bevel of the gauge in the waist just like I did with the knife. Since we already have a knife mark there, we can just drop it right in. Okay, so that's going to be waist all the way across, and this is going to be waist just for a ½ inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry these all the way across the bottom of the part. This measurement needs to be a little bit longer because we're going at an angle now. Here we go. So this is all waist here, and this is waist here, and that's waist there. This may look like a cross cut, but when you're making this first cut, you're cutting along the grain. So you need a rip saw to do this quickly. I'm going to make it a little easier on myself to start that thing by cutting a groove here. The way I'm going to cut this is a lot like the way we did the last cut. I'm going to set a kerf at 45 degrees on each corner, and then I will saw all the way across. So I have this bad habit when I'm sawing with a panel saw of tilting the top of the saw away from my body. And knowing that, if I do that here, I'm going to undercut in the material I want to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the part around. That way if I screw it up, I'll screw it up in the waist. I'll have a little more work to do to clean up the face, but at least I won't cut into the part I want to keep. A hump in the middle, so I'm trying to knock that down. Okay, now we're going to grab the tenon saw. A little cleanup work to do here. Now that we've got our notch for the clamping pin to rest in, we need to cut the notches on each end for the pin keepers. And that is basically 2 inches wide and a ½ inch deep. It's made to fit this piece of material here. I'm going to set my marking gauge to a ½ inch. just do a quick double check. Should be about the same as the thickness of this material here. Extend this edge across about 1/2 inch. And we're going to come back from the front edge. Same thing down the front here. And the marking gauge isn't going to get all the way into this inside corner, but that's okay. I mean, we're just doing this as a guide. You could easily lay this out in pencil if you like. All right, we'll do the same thing on this side. Okay, so this is all going to be waste. And we're ready to cut. I don't normally like to chisel with the part in the vise like this, but I'm taking pretty light cuts. And the part is wide enough that I would be chiseling up here, and that always feels awkward to me. Hey everybody, it's Mark here. While I'm fitting this piece of joinery together, I wanted to let you know that if you're looking to build your very own shave horse, I've got kits for sale over at jointeffort.net. The kit comes with a full set of plans, an adjuster, and all the nuts, bolts, and screws you need to put a shave horse together. All you have to do is add your material. Just take a look at the link down in the description. A great way to check your work on a little step like this is to set a bigger square to the dimension you were going for and put the stock here, and it looks like I've pared past what I wanted, but the surface here is just a little bit proud of the material that I'm going to use, and I can plane that flush after I get everything fit. So that's not a big problem, as long as the material that's left between these cuts is slightly bigger than the distance between the shoulders on the clamping pin. I'm okay, because this thing needs to be able to spin freely inside of its little pin holders. So we'll cut the other side and we'll see how that worked out. If I find out that I've taken a little too much width out of this space, I can always pare one of these shoulders down to make up for the error. If you have a router plane, you could clean these faces up with that too. All right. Put this board here. Check it on the other side, and I got about a 1/16 of an inch of a gap which means we should be able to spin freely, which means we're good.